Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with buckwheat pancakes. That's right, don't let the name fool you. These contain neither buck nor wheat, which is of course great news for our gluten-free friends. And while it did take a few days to get the formula just right, these really did end up coming out quite well. So let's go ahead and get started with the main ingredient, buckwheat flour. And there it is. And believe it or not, this is made by grinding the seeds of a plant related to rhubarb. So not only is this wheat-free, it's actually grain-free. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add the rest of the dry ingredients to this bowl. And that's going to include a little bit of sugar, a little pinch of salt, of course. We're also going to need some baking powder and baking soda as well. And once we have all that together, we'll take a whisk and we'll give this a good mix in for about a minute to kind of mix everything together. You could also sift this if you want, but if you give it a good whisking, it pretty much does the same thing. And then once our dry ingredients are set, we can grab another bowl and mix up our wet ingredients, which is going to start with 1 large egg. We're also going to want a little hint of vanilla. And then last but not least, some buttermilk. And yes, you can use regular milk for this. But the buttermilk, in addition to being low fat, is going to add some extra flavor, a little bit of tanginess. It's also going to react with the baking soda in our dry mix, which is going to create bubbles that lightens the texture. And we'll go ahead and give that a mix with a whisk. And once that's set, we'll simply pour our dry ingredients into our wet mix. And we'll take our whisk and mix that up to form a fairly thick but still very pourable batter. And by the way, one of the advantages of this being gluten-free is that you really don't have to worry about overmixing this. All right, traditional pancake batters will get tough if you overmix them because of the proteins in the flour, but here we don't have to worry about that. Of course, having said that, continuing to mix something that's already mixed is kind of crazy, so we certainly don't want to waste time, but the point is you don't have to worry about it. Mix it up until it's smooth and looks like this, and you're done. And then what we want to do is let this sit for about 5 or 10 minutes before we make our pancakes. All right, it's going to give all those ingredients a little time to react with each other, and you can already see we have lots of bubbles forming, so that's good. So like I said, we'll let it sit there about 5 or 10 minutes before heading over to the stove to cook these in a nice hot cast iron skillet or griddle or whatever you use for your pancakes. So I usually preheat my pan on medium-high heat. And then before the batter goes in, I like to smear it with a little bit of butter. And once that's been buttered up, it's time to batter down. So I'm going to ladle my mixture in to make 3 pancakes. And by the way, if you're wondering why this was so messy, it's because I didn't want to make a shadow. So I'm reaching up and over the camera, pouring this stuff in from like 3 feet away. So considering that, I did a pretty good job. But anyway, we'll ladle in our batter. And by the way, once your batter's in the pan, you could probably back your heat down to medium for the rest of the cooking, especially if you're using cast iron. That stores a lot of heat. And yes, of course, those microscopic little drops bothered me, so I removed those so I wouldn't go crazy. And all we need to do is cook these for a few minutes until a couple things happen. First, we need to see bubbles coming up from the bottom bursting through the top, which you can clearly see here. And also the batter around the edge is going to start looking kind of dry. And once you do see those 2 things, you're ready to flip. So we'll flip those over. We'll give that second side about a minute or so. And at that point, your buckwheat pancakes are ready to plate up. And by the way, I really think these would work with pretty much anything people include with regular pancakes. You know, stuff like nuts, blueberries, bananas, etc. Pretty much anything, except chocolate chips. I'm sorry, but chocolate chip pancakes are an abomination. But anyway, that's up to you. You are the alfalfa of your buckwheat. So you'll have to decide what to serve with these little rascals. But I'm going to go pretty traditional. I'm going to do a little bit of melted butter over the top, and quite possibly a little in between the pancakes when the camera was off. And please promise me you're going to use real butter. I mean, why would you make something this gorgeous and delicious and nutritious and then desecrate it with margarine? Just makes no sense. And then you know what's coming after the butter. A nice generous drizzle of maple syrup. And finally, my buckwheat pancakes are ready for the fork. Check it out. For something that's supposed to be good for you, these don't look too bad. So let's tear right in. And despite doing this recipe with 100% buckwheat flour, these were surprisingly light and tender. Just a really pleasant texture and really not that heavy at all. And as far as the taste goes, yes, buckwheat definitely has a nuttier, earthier, more pronounced flavor than a regular white flour does. But I really do think you're going to enjoy it. And it's funny, one of the knocks you hear about buckwheat pancakes is that the inside really doesn't have an attractive color. Apparently a lot of people just aren't into dingy, grayish brown food. But you know what? I disagree. I think these are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, something doesn't necessarily have to be pretty to be beautiful. That's something I learned a long time ago from a Christina Aguilera video. But anyway, that's it. Buckwheat pancakes. Easy to make, gluten-free, and very nutritious. And of course, none of that would matter unless these were really delicious, which they are. Which is why I hope you give these a try very soon, okay? So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.